Hello and welcome back to the Relay Throw. Today we are doing a little end of year recap with some of our editors, some of our board members. I'm hosting this one, even though the host of the Relay Throw is sitting next to me, Dan Allback.
Sure am. Not even the original host. Well, I'm one of two. Shout out Andrew Hard, but this is the last one I'm doing for now as a host, I guess. But yeah.
Ain't that the truth? So yeah, here I am with Dan Allback, the 6th editor-in-chief of Center Field Marist. You got this honor as a junior, and you've been captaining the ship ever since. So what's that position? What's this club meant to you these past few years?
Yeah, not a lot. No, I'm kidding. It's really been everything. It was the start of my career here at Marist. It was the start of my written career. It's the reason why I have a job now. It literally is the reason I have been able to progress. You think about how many people you've met. We were just talking about this before the show. The bridge of people that you meet. I am, I've been in the presence of Bridget Riley, who is now at the New York Post. That was editor-in-chief here. I've been in the presence of John Kinane, who has written 200 plus articles for the site that we just found out, which is unbelievable. And I'm also in the presence of a lot of these underclassmen, a few watching this live. And it's just crazy the amount of people you meet. I think it's more about the people you meet rather than what you create. There's a mix of both, but I really care about the personal relationships that I've created while I've been here. And it's really special when you think about the last 4 years, and especially this role as editor-in-chief, just getting to publish people, getting to see a little more of your creative vision published. You get to do what you want, but it's a team vision. It's not individual.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously about the people. We have a real good environment here that we're proud of. You've also written 80 stories for Center Field.
Yeah.
And plenty of them in not just this magazine, the year before, and the year before that.
Yeah.
So is there a favorite story that has made the magazine of yours? Or is there just a favorite story that didn't make the cut that you're really proud of and you want to give some spotlight to here?
I think the race walking piece I did junior year was really what opened my eyes up to what you can do coverage wise. I coming into doing coverage here, I was really focused on covering basketball and the bigger sports, like everyone. But I really started out with doing a lot of those lighter features that maybe aren't as notable. And race walking, this is one I covered junior year during my feature writing class, and it's one where I was able to combine a lot of my writing skills, but also a lot of my creative ideas. I wanted to race these race walkers, got my what kicked, but it was really fun. It was a piece I cared about because these race walkers have gone through a lot here at Marist. Let me open my own laptop real quick. They've gone through a lot here at Marist, but they've also just gone through a lot personally. It's an interesting way to get involved as an athlete, and I really cared about telling those stories that would otherwise get not really covered at all. And that's up there. There's a lot. I really liked the MAC coverage I did. It's in there. That was a good one because it just brought, again, you bridge so many people together, and that was one where I had conversations with people beyond the Marist walls. I had conversations with Fetterman and Jane Daly and just a lot of people that have really been around this conference, which I think is fascinating. Just the how people react to the MAC, and that's kind of something you learn here. You become an enjoyer and a really involved in the MAC, which is just hilarious because it might not last. The name might not last the next few years, so it might be a relic soon. And it's just such an interesting community, and I'm glad to do some coverage on how that works.
So to me at least, you're kind of, and I'm sure to everyone else, you're kind of the blueprint here. 2 years as editor-in-chief, a year as an associate.
Yeah.
2 years on the football beat. You went abroad for a semester and you came back. You went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's one elusive thing. Never went to the MAC tournament in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Something that bothers you.
Yeah. I've thought about this too. It's man, I didn't go to the MAC tournament. I was heading this thing. No, it's because I wasn't a beat reporter, and I think traditionally we've sent beat reporters and their respective editors. Obviously I went to cover Notre Dame, with Derek and Jimmy, and I wasn't the basketball beat reporter. I just did it because I wanted to, and because I had a vision for what we did there. The Max, yeah, I'd love to see it. And it's funny too because we're talking about this. There might not be a MAC tournament in AC past next year, so does it bother me? Not really. I've been really lucky with the opportunity. Some people don't even get to go on trips. Like. Thank goodness softball keeps going. So now Aiden gets to see, excuse me, something like that in fruition. But no, I'm not really bothered by it. I've been associated with a lot of people. I got to go to the Super Bowl and, eat crawfish and talk to some really cool athletes and got really lucky with that. You can't be mad when you get to do something like that. Yeah. That really is career changing. So.
And, I mean, the main reason it was difficult for you to go was your internship with NBC. Yeah. A year-long internship.
Yeah.
Can you talk about juggling that with what you're doing here and just kind of all the important stuff?
Yeah. There? Well, I had always been juggling a lot of hats. I still, even though I was kind of like rising through here, I really love broadcasting side of things. I still do. I love video editing. I've collaborated with Gene on a number of multimedia stuff. On-air stuff for Red Fox Report and commentating. I love doing all of it. I love the whole thing. That's why, like, on my LinkedIn, I put, like, just journalist. I'm a sports media. I like all of it. Writing is just, like, what I happen to do a lot of. So when I got this role for Today.com, which was just shocking and such a great opportunity, I jumped on it because, yes, I had huge responsibilities here, but I would be stupid if I passed up this opportunity because of what I had to do at Marist. It was the same thing when I went abroad. You got this. For me, it was like I got this once in a lifetime chance. I don't know how long I can live abroad somewhere for months at a time. Pursuing my career goals. It's hard to do. It's a huge commitment, but this was a way to manage that, and that's kind of how I thought about it with today. It's like there are opportunities here that. Things can adjust. My other things in my life can adjust. And what happened? Well, I ended up writing a ton and doing more for my career and meeting a lot of great people, getting to do a lot of really cool things coverage-wise. Like I said, I stopped working there Friday. I had some stories go out yesterday. So it's crazy when you think about the exposure people get. On covering something like that, and it's really awesome.
I just have one more question, one more kind of statement for you and your impact here. There's a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores here. Yeah. One of few juniors. It's weird to be one of the only people who saw the publication before you took over. And looking at it from, the previous board was great, and it was a lot of great work done there, but just seeing how it took off multimedia-wise, story-wise, graphics-wise, since you kind of came to the helm there. What does that mean to you to kind of look back on all the progress that's been made?
I think it's proof that you should always write down goals when you start a project that's like your own. Because Luke and I really didn't know what we were going to do before we wrote down what we wanted to do. Increase the social media. That was number one. We got to get more followers. We got to get more people. Like, that's how you get attention. Like, I feel like the coverage before us was kind of reliant on the community, and which is great. There's a lot of newsletters. Shout out the community newsletter that's a lot of the Marist fans that circulate our content. But we were moving towards. We were kind of outdated in that front. So we wanted graphics people. And this is not just me. This is Luke and I. We wanted graphics people. We wanted people that really just could dig down. And if we needed like a video or a cool project, they could work on that. And it's really cool that like it was kind of an instant impact that first year. But then it's like you come back senior and you're like, all right, we have so many things to do and we are established. And it's really cool to be established. That's why I think this year was so successful. I think this year was better than last year because we had so much working for it. But then you also think of the editorial side of things. Like I had a vision to train people to certain roles. I knew that there were people here that were going to be here for a little bit, and I wanted them to like really just like take advantage of, hey, there's not a lot of people here like that are seniors when we were all when I was a junior, you were a sophomore, like seeing Marley take the men's basketball beat in the managing role and run with it, seeing like Aiden, make a lot of these columns on the site, Burnsy out of nowhere, like just creating some really cool stuff with the 2 beats he got, and then even your year, like I wanted you to be editor-in-chief for a reason. That was really cool that we made that happen. Through just a lot of due diligence and a lot of work together on stories and features. And then a lot of our multimedia people, like even Gene behind the camera, helping us out with some really cool projects, like doing a basketball game, a softball game, and like the bowling match. Like those are stuff that we just had never done before. That we were like, we can do it, so why not? Becoming a club too. I mean, I feel like we forget about that, but it really changed. It changed how we operate. We're gonna have some really cool equipment next year. That like I'm glad that part of my legacy will be not what I did, but what people can do. That's what means the most to me. Especially there was a certain point this year where I was like, all right, I've done what I can here. There's people need to take these opportunities themselves. And that's what I'm most proud of. It's very exciting to see things in motion. And I can leave this place and be happy because I don't need to do anything else because there are people here to do it for themselves. So,
Yeah, very well said. I mean, you've undoubtedly left a legacy here that, I'm not going to forget the underclassmen now.
Well, that's good. That would be bad if you forgot.
But it's going to be felt by people who you don't even touch here. The stuff put in place, becoming a club, the standard we're at now, it all comes back to you, and we're very thankful for that.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time today out of your busy schedule to talk with me.
I will just say one thing, I just real quick. I did start this podcast too, and it's gone through its ups and downs certainly with just what we got going on, but this is kind of what started a lot of the multimedia things for me and what I wanted to do. So thank you to Andrew Hard for doing it with me and all the guests that we got that first year, Freddie, Coleman, Pat Gardner, Weinman, opened my eyes to what we could do here beyond just being a paper. So felt like that needed to be said.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, thank you again for everything, and thank you for hopping on. We'll throw this into the next person.
Well, let's do it.
I'm here with Marley Pope, our managing editor this year for Center Field. Marley, you got a week or so left in your senior year. What's that starting to feel like?
It's I've been feeling the emotions for the last several weeks now, but it really is coming to a head now with, exam week. We're in the middle of it right now. I have one exam Friday, and then next week is senior week before graduation. So I see a lot of people walking around North End with their graduation outfits, taking pictures and stuff, which is just crazy. So it's just it's a lot of emotions, but it's a happy ending for sure.
Mm-hmm. Luke Sassa always talks about the managing editor role being kind of underappreciated, undervalued. Can you kind of sum up what this role has meant to you? What have been the most important aspects to it this year for you?
Yeah, I think it's an awesome role to take on. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication, but I was very fortunate to be able to be put in that position to have such a big hand in our interview process, and that is what the managing editor does: getting interviews for everybody, contacting SIDs, and setting up logistical, like when is somebody not in class, when is somebody available during the week to get their interviews for a story they're working on. So I was very grateful to be a part of that for all these writers, not just the editors, but all the other members of the club who are, maybe working on a story for a first time or one of their first features. And that's just it's awesome to see them go through that process and be able to experience it, because I was once in that position getting my first interviews for a feature or a gamer, and I understand, the process that it takes and the emotions that are going through your mind when you're trying to figure out how to do this as an underclassman. So I was very appreciative of being a part of that process, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously a vastly important role that you held for Center Field this past year, but you're probably more known for your basketball coverage these past 2 years. What are some of your favorite moments covering the teams? Favorite stories, favorite games?
Wow, there's so many. I covered, I think I maybe missed one game last year. I was able to cover every game this year. Thank God scheduling worked out for that. But I think favorite games, Probably the first thing is last year's MAC quarterfinal game when they beat Niagara. That was just like they were in trouble in that game, and Jaden Collins-Roberts played really well in the second half, and they were able to advance to the next round. That was really nice. And then this year, there's a couple. I think the first from this year is the Richmond game, where I was fortunate to travel to that and cover that game. That was one of the biggest wins that they'd had in a while, just from a non-conference perspective, beating Richmond, who won the A-10 last year. And being in person for that, too, was really nice. And then another game was the home game versus Siena. That was on ESPNU, first sellout since 2008, and the crowd was just absolutely insane. I could never imagine McCann being that rowdy. You know, that's not something the town has seen in a while, so being able to be on the front row seat for that was just amazing. And then also going to AC again this year, even though the season didn't turn out the way they wanted, really a tough end of the season, losing the first round of the tournament, just being there and seeing all the teams playing and all the bands and all the cheer teams and all the other press people is just, an experience you can't really complain about no matter what happens to the team that you're covering.
Mm-hmm. We got the magazine in front of us here. You have 3 stories in it. I'm pretty sure that's a record, most stories by a writer in a magazine. So what's that mean to you to have this kind of for the rest of your time to take?
Yeah, it means everything. Last year I wasn't able to get a story in the magazine, which, whatever. I mean, I did, what I could with that. But this year I was fortunate to write 2 great features on basketball players that were selected, and then also write a column on the basketball team. So it means everything to me. I mean, I took like 4 or 5 copies, so I'll be able to give them to my family, and it'll be a memory that I'll hold forever. So it's awesome that I'm a part of that.
That's awesome. Before we wrap up, we're gonna have a little fun question for you. What is your favorite story you've written in your time at center field?
Oh God. That's a good question. I mean, it's easy to pick one of the stories in the magazine. I think the one I was talking to Gene about these yesterday. I researched former MAC players that are in March Madness this year, and I really like doing that because there was a ton of players, at differing levels of college basketball, and I think that was just a really fun one to research and be able to publish. And I think a lot of the MAC community appreciated that and thought that was like a cool idea. So I think that's probably the most fun I've had researching and writing a story.
Thank you for everything these past few years, Marley. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate everything you've done for me, Ben, and I know you're going to do great things next year. I know I'll miss you. I'll miss this environment, and you'll miss us, but I know you're going to carry on the legacy and the standard that we've been able to set.
Thank you. We'll throw us to the next person. Now we are here with Mike Burns, who's unanimously center field's most improved player this year. Mike, what can you say about your senior year, your first full year here with center field?
Yeah, it was a great time. Like you said, I mean, my last year was also my first year pretty much at the same time. Spring semester, junior year, I think I was at 8 articles, and then had women's soccer and women's basketball beat, which helped me climb to I think 47 total. So it was packed in a sense, but I loved every minute of it. Got to end off just editing a lot more articles, which was cool. But yeah, super thankful for it all. It was a great time for sure.
Yeah, and then mixed in with all those stories you wrote, you got one in the magazine, one about Lexi Terrell. What was that, kind of the premise of that story, the interview process, all of that stuff?
Yeah, so that was my first feature article. That took place just at the end of winter break. Lexi was cool thing about it is Lexi was one of the first moves for Aaron Dowdy. Came from Fordham, had a couple of injuries. And for Leander's sports feature writing class, a lot of the topics that I focused on was just those injury comebacks. I've always loved those kind of storylines because they write themselves in a sense, but there's also so much more that goes into it, which is cool. So when I found that was kind of Lexi's story too, I wanted to dive into that. And Lexi's obviously a huge impact player for Marist too. And so just kind of discovering her work ethic, how she got to be in the spot that she did with Marist. It was a cool story to write, and obviously Lexi was very nice and offered a lot of information throughout the entirety of it. So definitely a cool piece to write for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it a little earlier about doing 2 beats this year, women's soccer and women's basketball. What was this past year like? Kind of just you finished women's soccer and all of a sudden you're on women's basketball. How did that come about?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess starting with women's soccer, that took place like a week before school. Dan and Luke texted me and they were like, "Hey, do you want to take on the women's soccer beat?" I was just kind of planning on doing women's basketball, but I was like, I can. I was like, some of the games might not work for me, so they're like, all right, let's see if Max can do it. And then they were like, all right, Michael, your schedule works better. Let's ride with you. And I was like, all right, let's do it. I'm knowledgeable in soccer, but not like crazy knowledgeable, like going into it. So did a lot of like research and just like making sure like I was set up properly for it. Soccer obviously didn't have the best year ever, but still a fun beat to cover. And it kind of helped me. Like I said before, I only had 8 articles, so doing that kind of helped set me up for women's basketball in a sense, just getting the rhythm down. I know it's different sports, but still like getting that rhythm down, that timing down, and just doing interview questions as well was super helpful. And yeah, the transition, they kind of almost overlapped in a sense. So right as women's soccer ended, I was going right into women's basketball, which was a little difficult, but at the same time, I was able to ease into it in the same sense. So yeah, it wasn't too difficult of a transition, I would say. And women's basketball exceeded expectations this year too, which was definitely fun to report on and compete for.
And obviously you're super involved here and you joined late. I feel like some younger people feel like they have to, if they don't get involved in their freshman year early on, like they're behind and it's kind of intimidating for them to come into when they're an upperclassman or a sophomore. So what do you think is kind of the most inspirational part of your journey here at Centerfield that some of the younger people can look to and say, hey, that could be me, even if I didn't get involved to start?
Right. I mean, I got into it with Luke was the one that kind of like put me in a good spot. Had me shadow a couple of women's basketball games, and I did 2 gamers for them, and then I started out with men's rowing, who like I don't know anything. I can honestly admit now that I don't know too much about rowing anyway. So that was one of the first things I did, and you know, I think just every opportunity that you get, just take it to the fullest extent, because that's kind of like the entry into just more opportunities that can develop. I guess you know, even if it's something that you're not knowledgeable in, it's not like you should stray away from it. You should just take it head on, and you know, do some background thinking, background research, and just you know, do everything you can with it. And I mentioned it at the end of the year meeting. Just taking every opportunity that you can get. That's just the main thing to do. There's no stupid pitches. There's no like dumb ideas that you can come up with. As long as you just have like a baseline and you have like a story that you can create, why not do it? Why not pitch it?
Yeah, so you covered a multitude of games through women's soccer and women's basketball this past year. Is there a favorite one that you've covered?
Yeah, so I guess maybe not a favorite, but one of the most thrilling one was the first game I did for women's basketball. They lost the game, but it was a away game at Ryder. It went into overtime, and Lexi Terrell got fouled on a 3-quarter court shot. They were down 3. She made the first 2 free throws and then missed the third. But the fact that was one of my first games was just a wild game to cover. I think for this year for women's basketball, the same with Terrell, the game that they won against St. Peter's. She had a fall-away layup, game winner, and they earned a first-round bye from that game, and they were projected to be 11th in the MAC, and that secured them either a 4th or 5th seed. They finished with the 5th seed. So just kind of like see that live, cover that live, like that moment where they just like officially exceeded all those expectations was a really cool game to cover. For women's soccer, I guess one of their first wins was a pretty cool one to cover. They had a 2-1 victory. That was a pretty good one to cover. But yeah, women's basketball, there was a lot of thrilling wins. But that road one against St. Peter's was definitely took the cake.
Yeah, that one was wild. Yeah. But we're so glad that you got involved this past year and have stepped into a heightened role. And we're gonna miss you next year. But thanks for hopping on. Thanks for everything you've done for us.
Absolutely, you guys are in good hands.
Throw it to the next one.
All right, I'm Marley Pope, managing editor of Marist Centerfield. I'm here with Ben, associate editor of Centerfield, future editor-in-chief of Centerfield. So Ben, before we get into what your plans are for next year, let's talk about what you've been able to get in the magazine this year. Feature piece on Sarah Doshich of women's volleyball, and then also your column on women's basketball. Talk to me about those two stories and how you feel about getting those in the magazine this year.
Yeah, for sure. The Sarah Dossich one was a lot of fun. I mean, it was a tough year for the volleyball team. Didn't really meet their expectations, but they had a lot of new players and a lot of fun stories within them, especially Sarah, who's from Serbia, and she went the JUCO route to get to D1 volleyball. She started in Florida, made her way to Marist this year. Really nice girl, really fun interview, and a really good player too, who's going to be a part of kind of this rebuild of the Marist volleyball program in the future. And the other one is kind of a column on the women's basketball team. We had, a little behind the scenes, we had a few spots open in the magazine in case something crazy happened in Atlantic City this year to kind of to plan around that. And that game was crazy, to put it simply. And although they lost, it made for a real good story on kind of what our experience was like being there for that and covering that, and just how much of a whirlwind of 13 minutes of game time was and the hour it took to unfold.
Yeah, and then you also were able to write a piece this year on Marisha Scioto of the dance team. You were able to spend a day with her and get into her life. And tell me about how that experience was being immersed in her life and how busy she is and what it took to be able to write a story like that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had heard about her story dating back to last semester because she's a race walker here at Marist. She competed at the Olympic trials. She's on the dance team. She teaches in the Poughkeepsie area. So I knew it was a story that I wanted to cover. And going into it, I originally thought, okay, this will be a great just interview, feature, maybe 1,000, 1,500 words. And as I'm kind of learning more stuff about her through her friends and through people on the dance team, I'm realizing like there's a lot more to this story than I could just sum up in one kind of standard feature. So I ran it by her at a basketball game, asked if, hey, I want to write this story about you, but I really want to get into it. I want to follow you around. I want to make sure I do it the right way and leave no stone unturned. So I had about 3 pages of Google Docs worth of questions for her that I asked her throughout the day. And over 3 hours of interview footage with her, teammates, coaches, and some other people that she's impacted along the way, and learned so much about her and her story. And I wanted to make sure it was all in there. And it turned out being over 5,000 words, but I'm really proud of how it turned out, and she was very appreciative of it and all the hard work I put into it. I was appreciative of her and letting me into her life for that one day, and it turned out to be an awesome product.
Yeah, it's a great story, and I'm very proud of the work you put into that. So great job on that. Now for you, you've been an editor for 2 years. Now as a senior, you're going to be the editor-in-chief of this publication. What are some things that you think about over these last 2 years that have prepared you the most for now being able to run the show for your senior year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so lucky that kind of you, Dan, and Luke especially kind of kept me in the loop of everything that was happening behind the scenes within the club. Dan, who's doing his internship with NBC this semester, would miss meetings at times, obviously understandable. We were supportive of him all the way, but that kind of set the stage for you to step up, and he would send us his agenda for each meeting, and just seeing that, I'm like, okay, this is what he thinks of going into these meetings as editor-in-chief. So seeing that and seeing kind of the preparation that really goes in behind the scenes to running this club, I feel like that's left me prepared. I know what it's going to take to do it, and I think just being in this room for so long and knowing all these people, not just our grade and the grade above me, but the grade below me, and kind of making relationships with them, I feel like I'm in a good place to lead them, and I know it's not just going to be me with the final word of everything. It's going to be a team effort, and I'm so confident in our team with Kara and Jalen, and then Max Rosen, who's going to be abroad in the fall, but he'll be back in the spring. But it's such a good group of leaders that we do have. I'm not going to feel like I'm alone doing it.
Right, and with myself and 3 other seniors graduating, you are bringing in a lot of new people for the editorial board that have to get up to speed. So what are some goals this summer to make sure that those people are ready to be in position to, be the contributors that you need in the fall and spring?
Yeah, the main goal is, I think, just staying in touch. I mean, I've already put together a few Slack group chats just to make sure we all have kind of a place to talk in case, any news comes out within Marist Athletics that we need to cover, and we're on top of it. But I think the special thing about center field that I always talk about is just the close-knit group that we have. year after year, people graduate, people come in, and it's still the same environment in this room. So I want to make sure that that's known for these new members, where they might feel like they're new and coming into an environment that might be scary or intimidating, but that's not how we want it to feel at all. We want it to feel like they're welcome, and we're all friends here. It's going to be a good place to be, and you're going to want to be in this room.
Yeah, and once again, reflecting on this year, what is a favorite moment that you have, either, you know, a game story or something you were working on, or just a moment that you remember that sticks out to you the most?
It's so tough. I mean, I asked you the same question there, but I think you overlook the daily grind of it. You kind of say, oh, I got to be at this meeting in 10 minutes. I'm running across campus to do it. But those are the moments you kind of live for, like every day you're seeing the same people, you're working on the same things, you know what you're doing, and I try not to take that for granted. So I think it's not really a distinct moment, but just the everyday grind of it I love. And I love being here with all this group, and all the stuff we have to do may seem a lot at times, but I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I know next year you're going to be in a great position to lead a group of a lot of new people, but there's a foundation here that exists, and a lot of that is because of the work you and Kara and Jalen have done. So I'm very confident in what you will be able to do with this publication next year, and it's going to be very exciting to see what you come up with.
Thank you. We hope to make you and all the other seniors proud, and going to be glad to stay in touch with you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, we'll throw it to the next person. I'm here with Kara Lacey, our multimedia director. Kara, you were abroad in the fall in Australia, New Zealand. You enjoyed that. How did this team let you so easily return and be able to, you know, work in your role after being abroad for half of the year?
Yeah, so last year I feel like we got pretty close towards the end of the year, spending more time together outside of the center. And then when I was abroad, I would talk to Dan and Luke pretty frequently. Me and Ben would Zoom. I Zoomed once with Andy. So I was like kept in loop. And then Jalen unfortunately went abroad this semester. So while she took my spot, she left, and then I took her spot. It was, say, pretty seamlessly, like, between the two of us, like, keeping in contact with each other as well.
And one of the biggest things that you do in the multimedia department is work on our magazine. And like you mentioned, Jalen, being abroad this spring, you basically did this all on your own. Yeah. Walk me through the process of creating the magazine, one of, you know, the biggest parts of our publication.
Yeah, so this year's magazine, I wanted it to be a little different than last year's. Last year's was like very minimalistic, pretty like white and blacks and grays. This year I wanted to add more color with like the red of Marist, and Quinn designed the cover. We knew we wanted to do basketball theme because both teams had such good seasons this year that like weren't really expected for the women's team either. And it was just a lot of fun. A lot of time on InDesign, definitely, and my laptop crashed like every day.
Well, I'm glad that you pushed through it, because like we've mentioned many times, this is, you know, you did a really good job, and it's a big deal for all of us writers who are able to have our bylines in the magazine. And now for next fall, you're going to be transitioning into more of an editorial role as the managing editor.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're thinking about in terms of how to adjust to that role moving forward?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the work that you do, Marley, right now, and we wouldn't be able to stay afloat without you, so I'm just going to try to do exactly what you do, like be very communicative, like in the Slack with the SIDs, and just make sure that everyone knows what's going on and where they should be.
I appreciate that. And with Jalen coming back, what do you feel like you two can lead the multimedia team into doing next fall, and, you know, even more than we've done this year?
Yeah, definitely like up the graphics, like in story-wise. I think we want to do a lot more like photos and media, like as on the website as you scroll. I think that'd be really good because Jalen takes awesome pictures. And just making graphics with Quinn as well. I think we could really up the game, not even on Instagram and the website, but going more into like video content as well.
Okay. And as a managing editor, you're probably going to take on another beat or two next year. How did the water polo beat the last 2 years prepare you for potentially taking a beat like women's soccer next year?
Well, water polo is very different, I feel like, than every beat because they're home maybe twice a year. So it's mostly just like watching live stats, or over spring break, I think I got to watch a lot of live streams, and that was really nice to finally watch them play. And it's such a fast-paced game that you don't really have time to like think about like what's going to happen next. You kind of just have to keep on going, and I think the fast pace of water polo will like help me ease into different beats.
Okay, good. And for this year, for you personally, what are some best moments that stick out to you after your one semester here this year in
Well,
the United States?
I was fortunate to come right back to campus and then go to the Super Bowl, which was awesome. It was like a great group of us, and we had a good time there. Then I got to go to AC with you, Marley, and Jean was there as well. And we had a great time covering the teams. Of course, it wasn't how we wanted it to go, but it was fun while it lasted. And then just hanging out with everyone, like our bowling event was really fun, just hanging out with everyone outside of like a serious professional setting.
Yeah, nice. I totally agree. The social stuff that we're able to do as a team is very special, and makes the sports comm program what it is. So,
Yeah, definitely.
Kara, thank you for the time, and we'll see what you do next fall.
Thank you, Marley.
All right, I'm here with Eugene Barbieri, multimedia assistant with Centerfield, but also does a ton of other things that we'll get into. Eugene, I first want to start with you as your reflections on this year as a multimedia assistant on this board, your first year being in a named position with Centerfield.
I mean, the change has been fantastic. I think there's so many cool things that Centerfield has accomplished. I mean, obviously the magazine, which we've been doing, but I think this magazine has really came out so well. All the multimedia stuff we're doing with the day in the life stuff, with Ben and the dancing, and all the content we've been able to do, like outside of Marist with, we did some content in New Orleans for the Super Bowl for Centerfield, and the content that we were able to do in Atlantic City. These are things that I hope are gonna be more prevalent as we move forward. But just seeing all that stuff has been really cool to me.
Yeah, and you've been a part of a lot of it. I know you're a very busy student as a commuter, as someone who's in Centerfield. You run Red Fox Report. You also work on the broadcast with ESPN Plus. How do you manage all those types of things, and what can people that see you take away from that in terms of your approach?
I would say when it comes to my approach and how I manage the commute from Jersey and how I'm able to keep myself involved on campus is you have to make some sacrifices. And for me, one of those big sacrifices is actually my schoolwork. When I have to create the rundown for the Red Fox Report and I'm sending back the feedback and I have the relay throw or I'm making a graphic for Centerfield, and then I also have a game that night at 8 o'clock, whether it's basketball or lacrosse or softball, it all takes time, and I'm always kind of racing against the clock. So what usually ends up happening is I don't actually do a lot of my classwork on time. Sometimes I'll keep it waiting for quite some time. My professors, even the sports comm ones, know that I have a bit of a reputation of turning in assignments pretty late, and that's not because I don't want to do them. It's just, you have to make some sacrifices with racing the clock and between doing your work, sleeping, and having a social life. You can kind of only really pick two. So,
Okay, well, my advice to people who are busy: don't neglect schoolwork too much, because
it's still very important. Don't get me wrong.
But
don't get me wrong.
I will say, SportsCom, a lot of the best parts of our program is what people are able to do out of the classroom, and Eugene is the perfect example of that. He does everything out of the classroom, and now he has so much practical experience that you will take into your career. So I can't blame you for that either.
Thank you. Yeah,
But,
do your work. Don't. That's just what sometimes that happens.
Now, you're a junior and you're going to be a senior next year. Mm-hmm. You're going to continue to be on the Centerfield board as a multimedia person. What are some things that you're thinking about doing for next year that maybe we have done this year or haven't done this year?
I've been loving the behind-the-scenes content that we've been doing. One thing that I've been kind of working on a lot is our board promotional videos. We had the basketball game and we had the bowling match, and I think those are really fun one-off things. It kind of makes the board feel more personable to the reader, I think, because you read all the articles and you read everything, but it kind of makes it, I mean, you know how tight-knit this program is. Having a once-in-a-while, like one-off sporting event or something where everyone's together, seeing all the writers and all the editors, all the multimedia guys coming together to play in a game, it's really, really special. And so next year, I definitely want to do more of that, whether it's, we'll be doing basketball again, we'll be doing bowling again, hopefully softball again, but maybe some other stuff. I also want to do maybe some more like larger scale video content where maybe we can have like I know with Red Fox Sport, we want to have center field guys on Red Fox Sport a little more often. So just sort of getting our writers and our contributors a little bit more experience on air, so their work can get out a little bit more. I'd like to work on that.
I think that's a great idea. I had a ton of fun when you brought me and Burns on the Red Fox Report talking about basketball. So I think that's a perfect idea for the younger writers to be more comfortable on air and be something that's part of their skill set. And Gene, final question for you. Name me your favorite project that you worked on this year, and what made it your favorite?
Oh, man, that's a tough question because I've worked on so many fun ones, but maybe recency bias right here, but the softball game. I just directed the MAC championship on ESPN Plus, which I didn't know I was going to do because I didn't actually see the email the night before that said I was directing that game. And I had directed a bunch of games throughout the week, but when I came in and Jack Darling was like, "You got the call, like, how do you feel?" I thought he was joking. I thought he was joking, saying I was going to go play in the game. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm going to be a monster." And then about 20 minutes later, when I was asking what camera I was on, he's like, "Dude, you're directing it." So just kind of having, that's definitely a recency bias, probably. That was really fun for me to do that, but also being in Atlantic City was also pretty cool for me, and jumping between doing podcasts for center field and the student section. I was running all over the place, and it was kind of bang, and I like that. It's a lot of fun.
Nice, Gene. Yeah, that's great stuff. And I will say, as someone who was in the control room, Gene did a great job directing, and it ended up being a really good broadcast for the softball team winning a MAC championship. So credit to you, Gene.
Thank you.
All right, we'll throw it to the next person.
All right, we are here with Max Rosen, the next associate editor of Center Field. Max, thanks for hopping on this little podcast here, little segment.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Of course. So this was your first year as an editor, as a sophomore. So how did that experience differ from just being a writer, and was it kind of what you were expecting or anything different?
It was definitely different. I think I was kind of in a unique situation where, honestly, when I came onto the editor's board, I was a little inexperienced as it was. I did a little bit with baseball last year, and then came onto the editor's board, and it kind of took me a little while to get myself situated. I think last semester there was I wrote a tiny bit at the beginning, and there was like a 2-month gap where I didn't really do anything because I didn't know what I was doing. But then I got a feature out about Nate Horner, the tennis coach. And from there, I kind of got a little bit more confident and felt more able to be more confident and to write more. And then since then, with baseball and some of the other features, I've been able to really be involved more, and it's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So you talked a little bit about covering baseball. What's been that experience like, having a beat? Like, you did a lot of coverage of it last year, but knowing it's yours this year and kind of developing the relationship with the team and some of the players.
Yeah, it's been fun. I think baseball is a little bit of a difficult one just because of the nature of their schedule. They play a lot of games, and then mostly conference games, the important ones, are 3-game series over the weekend, and it's really hard to have time to sit through 3 baseball games. So usually that's not what happens, and it's just a recap of the series. And then, of course, the weekends that they've been home have been weekends that I've been out doing club baseball. So it hasn't worked out as well as I wish it did, but at the same time, it's been great to follow the team and write whatever I can. I was at their game yesterday, even though it was just a non-conference game. It's always fun to get out there and write a gamer in person, do the interviews after the game. So I definitely learned a lot from it, about how to stay focused and dedicated to a beat throughout the entire season, and how to kind of cover the different things that happen beyond just what's happening on the field. So that's been a great learning experience.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately for us, but fortunately for Max is going abroad next semester to Madrid. So you excited? Like, what, are you nervous at all? What are you feeling?
I'm pumped. A little nervous. I think the nerves will really come as we get closer to it. But it's been a goal of mine to go abroad the entire time that I've been in college. I was going to go to Florence, and kind of last minute, I started considering places other than Florence and realized that I hadn't considered anywhere else. And Madrid seemed really cool. So I'll be going there. I love to travel. I love to experience different parts of the world. So I think it'll just be really cool to see, a different culture, experience living in a different place for the 3-4 months that I'll be there. I'll definitely miss being a part of center field. I've really grown to love it over the past number of months, but I'll be excited to get back into it.
Yeah, I feel like we have a good system in place. Like, people like Kara, Jalen, Dan have all done their semesters abroad. We kind of say, we'll see you in a few months and let
Yeah.
them have that experience, and we have their position waiting for them when we get back. So we're definitely excited for you to take that position back in the spring semester and kind of figure out what your role is going to be going forward as you become an upperclassman here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Max. We're going to keep this thing moving. Got a lot of people to get through.
All right, hey everybody, Marley Pope here, managing editor of Centerfield. I have Hayden Shapiro, assistant editor on Zoom. Hayden, this is your first year on the editorial board. What are some things that you learned that you're going to take into next year?
Yeah, some of the things I learned, one big thing is leadership. The seniors this year were very good leaders, and they kind of took me under their wing as a first year editor, and I really did appreciate that, taught me some techniques. The second thing I would say is interviews. When I'm going into an interview, I used to be by the script, and I actually learned from some of the other people in the club, especially the seniors. If there's a good conversation going on, keep it going because that's how you're going to get some of your best answers.
Okay, and for next semester, you'll be starting your first beat, the football beat. What are some things you've already worked on or you're going to look at over the summer to prepare for that?
Yeah, so preparing for that is definitely going to be a task, but it's going to be fun because I'm really, really looking forward to the beat. Some of the things I'm really trying to work on is like looking at defenses is really interesting to me because Marist runs a lot of different defenses, and I'd really like to incorporate that into some of the articles that I write. And also just not rushing myself after a game because I see Dan when he's sitting there after a football game, he sits there for a good hour just reading over his stuff, and that's something I'm definitely going to work on going into the football beat in the fall.
Okay, and then for this year, what were some stories or gamers that you like the most that you put out?
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of interviewing Tyler Perrell. He's Marist Lacrosse's offensive coordinator and assistant coach. That was a really good one. It kind of turned into a much more conversational interview, which I really enjoyed. He was a really interesting guy, and I do recommend checking out that piece because I put a lot of work into it, and I think it came out really well. And gamer-wise, I would say the Marist football gamer that I got to write versus Bucknell this year was really, really fun. There was a sweet pick six involved. The weather held off the whole game, and as soon as the game ended, the skies opened up actually, and just in time the game ended.
Yeah, that's lucky you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, all right, Hayden, thank you for coming on. We'll see what you can do next year. You're gonna have a great time with the football beat, and I know you're gonna keep working to keep learning and be an even bigger part of center field next year.
thank you, Marley. Thank you, seniors.
All right, we're gonna throw it to the next person.
All right, we're here with August Lieberman. August is a sophomore, joined as a copy editor this spring, but it was kind of his first full year involved in center field. So what were some of the things you learned, some of kind of the influential people in your first year as a sophomore?
Some things I've learned are to kind of learn to seek out stories. I remember freshman year, I just kind of saw what was on the board. Like I could shadow this guy or, take this open gamer, but those weren't really they weren't really things that I had to look for. But like the first feature that I wrote this year and that I've communicated to you about since, like it wasn't that good, but it was like the start of like me starting to pursue stories that I found interesting that I wanted to write about. So if I were to go back and work my first feature again, it would be a lot longer and a lot more different, but I feel like it was valuable to learn that. And now I feel like when I take a feature or a story, like I actually want to write about it.
Yeah.
It's something that I want to write about and share with people, and I think that's important. Influential people, probably everyone on the board. I mean, I didn't know any of you people really, except for Luke, but then he graduated. So sad, but I got to know everyone else on the board. Even though I didn't go to a single editors meeting because I had class, but it was nice. Like just getting to know people more, people that have been in it longer than I did. So it was always good to get advice from them, and I'm gonna miss them next year. All the graduating seniors,
Mm-hmm.
Be sad to see them go.
Yeah. So you're talking about kind of missing the meetings due to your class schedule. How are you able to kind of impact the publication with your articles and editing when you weren't always here in the room with us to kind of make your presence more felt?
Yeah, definitely. So I only became an copy editor in the second semester of this year. So coming back, I was like, okay, like they keep talking about these editor meetings. Like I don't really know what goes on though. And so for the first like 2 Mondays, I'm like texting Marley. I'm like, what am I missing? What am I missing? He's like, dude, just like chill. Like open the managing doc and like see what's up. Cause like, okay, I was like, all right, I'll do that. and then I just kind of put my name down. That was kind of my rule of thumb. Like I would open it every Monday and just put my name wherever it was not taken, so I could edit something because then I wouldn't feel useless. So that's kind of how I tried to do it. But yeah, I wish I would have came to a couple editors meetings, but 9:30 to 12:15, basic drawing in steel plant. It's a ringer. No, seriously, that's something. So I'll be there next semester though.
Yeah, it sounds tough, but we're gonna have you at them next semester. Kind of feel more of a part of the group, which we're always emphasizing here, is we want it to be a tight knit group and a lot of fun in that way.
Yeah, I came to trivia.
You did come to trivia. We do some trivia outings, which are a lot of fun. So you also were on the women's lacrosse beat this year. So did you have any kind of background in lacrosse, or was that all just kind of learning on the fly?
All on the fly, just like Ryan said. Basically, Dan texted us like, "Hey kids, you two are going to be editors." It was like, "Oh, dude, this is awesome," because me and Ryan kind of came on the come up together. He actually shadowed me for soccer, which was kind of interesting, because he clearly knew way more about it than I did. And he was like, "Take your pick, men's lax or women's lax." I was like, I didn't care. So I was just like, all right, I'll take women's. And then I thought they would be the same sport, but apparently they're played very differently. So ChatGPT was actually my best friend. I would always ask it for rules. It knows it's a giant research engine. I was literally like, what does this mean in women's lacrosse? What does this mean in women's lacrosse? And I watched VODs back of the national championships, but I didn't really feel confident until the season preview when I actually sat down with them. Because the women's lacrosse team wasn't that good this year, which was all right. I mean, I still enjoyed going, and I had a lot of fun. Like the strength that the level that they were playing at, I still found very it was a lot of fun. Like I was really involved, but they were actually really good people. Like talking to them season preview, they were just normal human beings. And at that point, I was like, all right, I knew I could do this.
I started on women's lacrosse too, and also didn't know anything about the sport going into it. And I feel like that's a good way to kind of start a beat where you're really learning everything on the fly to the sport, the rules, the people, and then once you kind of have that experience, if you're in a sport you're more comfortable with, you know what to apply and what the most important things you need to know going into that is.
All right, I'm here with Ryan Eicham, a freshman here at Centerfield who joined as a copy editor in the spring semester and will be an editor with us next semester. So Ryan, you got involved very early in your freshman year to kind of earn your keep here. Were you intimidated at all, or how were you able to come in and just kind of take on all those responsibilities?
Well, I was definitely intimidated, but I knew that if I kind of let that fear win, I wasn't going to get involved at all. So kind of just first meeting I showed up, we were all in here, packed house, and we're going down the list of stories, and we read one out about Brian McKee, who is a men's soccer. I think he's officially the director of men's soccer, but he's very involved with the coaching staff and the players and stuff. So I want to cover soccer, and I stood there and raised my hand and figured, sure, why not?
Yeah. So, I mean, you wrote a few stories for us early on there, and then you earned that lacrosse beat, and you don't know much about lacrosse going in. So, can you talk to me about the preparation you put into that beat and kind of preparing for the spring?
Yeah, I essentially just made my entire YouTube recommended feed into lacrosse videos. I spent all of winter break on YouTube watching, because NCAA posts the recaps of the games and they post the full game videos. So I spent winter break watching last year's playoffs and watching YouTube videos and learning those stats from last year just to try and get it. But honestly, it was kind of I just jumped in. Marley was a huge help, but I mean, just figuring it out as I go.
Was there a moment where it kind of clicked for you, where you're like, okay, I can handle this and handle covering this team when I come back in the spring?
Oh, definitely. Well, I would say kind of. I feel like I knew what I was doing. I was ready to go into it, but covering games in person versus knowing about them is a total different thing. So yeah, I feel like I understood the game. I could watch a full clip of a minute or two of lacrosse and understand what was happening and watch the calls and figure it all out. But once I got into the game, they had their first game at home, I knew that I was like, all right, I'm getting comfortable with this. I'm starting to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So next year we're going to have you doing our men's soccer beat, which I know you're excited for. So this summer, kind of what are some of your plans for kind of getting ready for that?
Yeah, I'm very excited for men's soccer beat. I want to cover men's soccer in my professional career. It's what I want to get into. So I would say just kind of staying up to date. Obviously, I'm going to watch a lot of soccer over the summer. It would be in my daily routine anyway. But staying up to date with Marist, watching maybe some clips from last year, tracking any transfers, not only at Marist, but at the MAC. I know they've got a couple already going on. and just staying in touch so that I have all my information ready for when it's time to put the preview together and start covering the team.
And so looking back on your first year here at center field, what's a favorite memory, favorite story, maybe favorite game you've covered?
Favorite game I've covered, I have two, I think, one for each sport. Men's soccer, I shadowed Luke Sassa in the fall. It was the Fordham game. They hosted Fordham, who were at the time ranked, and Marist put out a gutsy, I think it was 2-1 win. It was a comeback. They went down 1-0 Friday or Saturday night. I couldn't remember. It was a packed house. So that was cool because then I got an article published about that game. That was, I think, it had a sidebar for that game. So that was a pretty cool moment that kind of was like, okay, this is where I should be. This is what I want to be doing. And then in lacrosse in the spring, they played Binghamton at home. And they were down 2 goals with like a minute left, scored twice, and then scored a literal last second zeros on the clock buzzer beater to win. And that was sick. Press box was going wild. It's a pretty cool moment.
Yeah. Well, awesome first year
Thank you.
for you. And we're really excited to have you involved more going forward in the future. But thanks for joining me. We're going to pass this along to our next station on the relay throw.
Well, that about does it for this season of the Relay Throw, this academic year, the 2024-2025 academic year. Did some really cool stuff this year at the magazine, a lot of cool trips, the Super Bowl. We're as big as the Super Bowl because we've been there. This is my last time signing off. So on behalf of me and the other seniors, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching our coverage this entire year. Thank you to Ben for taking this thing over, and thank you to everyone that has contributed. It's been an honor. And I'm proud to sign off one final time from LT141.